Good evening. Good to see you again. This is something I get asked a lot, believe it or not, and I even did a demonstration on this at Fine Woodworking Live. And when they first asked me to do it, I was like, really? That seems simple. But I'm going to just go over a few of the pointers and things I've learned over the years to avoid and what you're looking for in order to glue up a great tabletop. Now this works for little end tables like that or dining tables. So let me show you what I got going here. The tops of those shaker end tables are 18 by 21 finished. So in order to have enough material to glue up, you're looking to have boards that are, at least like 9.5 inches wide in the rough, so that you can get 2 cuts and 1 seam. Otherwise, you can glue it up out of 3 boards. This is actually glued up. It's still one board. It's still the same plank. That's one of the tricks of getting things to look nice. But there's 2 seams here. So this is how a lot of the classes, I would just get boards that are about 6.5, 7 inches wide. And I would need a cut of, it's 21 long. So figure 22, you need a plank about 66 inches long by 6.5 wide to get a top like this. And you want to get it out of the same board so you have that harmonious coloration, that beautiful one look. Now this looks a little different over here because I hand planed this half, and I can see that I haven't done this half yet. But you can scarcely see that joint. Now one thing to watch out for with cherry, which can be a tricky wood to glue up, and that's what's going to be the focus of this demo tonight, is this hard change in coloration. This creamy white color occurs in the sap or the outer growth rings of cherry. And it keeps like moving as the tree enlarges. So there's always like a ring of cherry, a pretty thick band sometimes around the edge. So it's so starkly different in color, the sapwood for cherry, that you either include it as a decorative element, which I don't often do, or you're cutting it off so that you can get a nice clean glue joint. I mean, look at how this stands out, because on this side I have the heartwood, and on this side I have the sap. Now, if I was able to mirror the same material, the same sap on the other side of that joint, I could have had like this sweet little stretched out football shape, and it wouldn't look as obviously like a glue joint. Every now and then it comes in handy to feature the sap, but we're not going to do that. We're going to cut out the sap where we can. In fact, I've already done that on these wider, beautiful planks. I got those out and then I chopped them up, and because I want my table to finish at 21 long, I figured I'd leave an extra inch on it. So 22, I need 2 cuts of 22 or 1 cut of 44. This one's 45, so I gave myself a little extra. But I usually try to leave at least an inch. So here's a couple others that are still in the hole position. I've got to glue these up before the class. I mean, look how beautiful these are. Prime cut. Now, I took a couple and I already cut them in half, but I want you to see, what I want you to show you is what some of the decisions are when you're going to lay out a board like this. This is a beautiful example. We've got, in the middle here, we have what's called cathedral figure. It's just where the growth rings are running in plane with the top. So this cut right here is, if you think back to your geometry, this is in a perfect tangent to the growth rings right here. So, or the cut is flat to the growth rings. So this is sometimes called flat sawn wood or plain sawn wood, where you have it right cut in line with the growth rings. So let's look at the end grain, and you can see right here, you could actually see those growth rings right here. We're right kind of heading to the heart of the tree right there. So that's where you see the cathedral. It's cutting through those layers, and it just reveals that way on the surface. But then as you get out toward the edge, you can see the growth rings start to come up at an angle to the surface, right at about a 45-degree angle here. And that's where you call that area of the cut is rift sawn. So between 30 and 60 degrees, or even a little steeper, rift sawn, and you expect to see linear grain on the surface there. And then on the other side here, we have linear grain, but not as much of it over here. And it actually is coming to the edge in an angle here like that. So here we have a little closer. Now, one of the things we think about with material is how to position this board so that the glue joint shows the least, okay? And how we have a very nice harmonious top. Now there's a couple ways to do that. I could take the board and slip it down the side here and match it with the growth rings on the other side. But it's actually the same growth rings if you think about it, because the tree is round. So those are coming over here and they're coming back over here, but we don't have as much of them, so it's not quite as linear. And we kind of have the growth rings on this side are angling into the joint. Not as good, right? That's called a slip joint, okay? So to slip match is just like that. We just slipped it in the same orientation. Now this match, we actually have another option here where all that grain is running linear down the side. We could come around like this and get a beautiful linear grain match. And see how that glue joint just disappears in the linear grain. So it looks like it's a continuous single board, except you wouldn't have two hearts of the tree. But most people don't even think about that when they look at it. You think it looks like one plank. So the one was the slip joint, and when you come around like this, we call that the come around like this joint. Actually, I don't know the name for that. That line always kills.
It always kills.
In this case, that will work. I still have to treat that edge. Even though it looks really good right now, I'm going to just join it to make sure it's in good condition. All right? Now, notice the grain here. It's relatively in plane. You see it's kind of coming right in plane here. It drops down a little bit, but over here it's a little bit more angular, but it's relatively in plane. Now let me show you another one. So let's say that's how we'll match that one up. We've got another one. And this one was this long in this position before I cut it. And it just made that arrow so I could see where to put it back together. Look how strongly this grain is sloping upward on the edge. So we're really seeing that it's much more dramatically sloping. It's not running in plane with the board. So what you're having here is the grain is exiting the surface in this kind of way, like almost like hairs on a dog. So if you were hand planing this, you'd want to plane in this direction so that you're going with the grain. If you come in this direction, you're going to be going right into the ends of the fibers as they're exiting, and you could get tear out, and you would feel that immediately as you start to plane it. So you've got like this sloping, raising grain. And when you see it on one side, you expect to see it on the other because you just cut that in half. And this one, you have it here, but not so much at this end. It starts to flatten out. So this is an interesting one. Let me show you the other side of this. That's a sloping grain. I'm going to keep that to the outside because one of the things that happens with cherry is that how you orient the grain, like I don't know if you can pick this up, but when I put it like that to you, this side, this is going to look dark because the grain is rising right there. And the other, this is really nicely in plane. So what I'm going to do is, let's get it back where it was. And because the other side is really in plane, really nicely in plane, I won't get any of that reflection into the grain, and I can get a really nice match like this. That would be a great match too, right? See how that grain looks really sweet there? And this kind of grain where it's running out like that, it's problematic usually to put along a glue joint because it's so angular. Watch what happens when I go over here. So if I made a glue joint there, it'd be pretty obvious that's where the seam is. But I'll take and come over this way. This is the old come around joint, and I've got a very nice glue joint right there. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark that one. I could also, this would also be a good candidate for a slip joint, because see how I slip over there, and that looks really good too. Don't you think? Mm-hmm. So let me go back to that other one just for a second here. In this case, because the grain is rising on this side, look how it's also rising on this edge, because that's how they were oriented. If I put these together, the grain is rising in the same direction. And that actually would result in a better joint, because one of the things you'll notice with cherry is sometimes, let's go with that instead. Sometimes when you glue up cherry after the fact, even though it's from the same plank, you can't believe, like, why? You did that come around joint and everything looked right. Well, if your grain is rising, it's going to be coming toward you from one side and down from the other. And it's going to look darker. So let's just do an experiment. Now that's a good match. I'm trying to get it so I can show you one grain rising and the other not. Yeah, I guess I'll go this way. Yeah, so these are going opposite directions. That one's rising and that one's not. But I see them both change. Like the one on the left looks darker. Then now this one looks darker because of the grain going like this. Mm-hmm. So that's the point, is if you have sloping grain, you want to try to match the slope along the glue joint, and you'll have less visible glue joint later on. Okay, so that'll be my match there. And I've got my other one there. I'm going to go ahead and joint those. And this first one, though, let's do this one by hand. Okay, I'm going to break out the old grandfather's plane for this. All right, so here we are. We want to joint this edge and glue it up by hand. First of all, I want to get rid of this. I'm still a little wide here, so I only need 18 finish, and I'm 18 3/4. So I'm going to I want to get rid of this. See that there's like a little pitch pocket there? This is another feature you see in cherry a lot, these little dark lines. And they're just like a little pitch, darker pitch. Look over here, you've really got some strong ones right here. These don't really bother me. I like the character of them. And as the cherry darkens, they just kind of meld into the background anyway. But right along the joint, if I can get rid of it, I'm going to just joint that off. So I actually will take this off at the joiner. So let me change that order up. Let's go to the joiner first, and I'm going to joint this edge, and then I'll hand plane this edge. But I'm just going to take that off at the joiner. So let's head over there. Now, usually I try to set my fence to 90 degrees to get a really good edge. And in this case, I want to joint these edges right here. So here's how we just matched them up. That's our match line. And what I'm going to do is joint that edge. So I just bring them up like this. And as long as I run them in the same direction, I don't even have to have my fence dead square. Because if the fence is slightly out of square, it's going to cut that angle on one of them. Like, let's exaggerate it. Let's say it's leaning over like a few degrees, and it actually cuts an angle like that on the end of my board. Let's say, I'm exaggerating that. Well, the other one, I'm going to feed that now in the same direction, but now the face is against the fence. But again, it's going to cut the same way. It's going to give us that angled cut like that. But it doesn't matter because you fed them through in the same direction, one from the bottom, one on the top. When they get joined together, the angle cancels out. See how they're in the same direction? They're leaning in the same direction. So it doesn't matter. It ends up giving you a good, true jointed surface. So when you glue these up, you don't want them to buckle like that. You don't want them to be out of flat. But as long as you run them in the same direction through the joiner, you'll be fine. No worries. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and run this one through just like I said, and we'll get a cut. Now, I didn't need to lower the table that much. I'm going to bring it back up a little. There we go. I'm just going to trim a little. Usually you're only trimming, like for a fine cut, is like 32nd of an inch. A 16th is a heavier cut. You don't really usually go there. But I know I'm already true. I'm going for the 32nd. Here we go. Going to take off that thing I mentioned. Now this one I only jointed one side, but you can see I'm a little bit, it's slightly open there. But I want to show you a way you can hand plane. If you don't have a joiner, it's not the easiest skill to develop, but you want to joint both of them at the same time. So you get them flush together on the end like that. And then I'm going to just, I just moved it. I'm going to get them flush in the, I just moved it while I picked it up. I'm going to lower it as much as I can, and I'll get them flush in the vise. This is the part that's a little bit of a pain. You want to get them as flush as you can. Now these again, they're in the position they are oriented at. So I have the chalk over here and the chalk here. They're going to just come together. So you get the same canceling out feature. Even if I hand plane these at a slight angle, like if I'm slightly like that, when I bring them up, they're going to be laying dead flat because it'll cancel each other out. All right, so I just get them nicely snug in the vise. And for this this is ideal. I don't get to use this much. This was my grandfather's plane. The number 7, this still has practically the Stanley Tools label on it. But anyway, when you tune up a plane like this, you don't want to have a camber on it, like I've talked about in other courses, to prep your irons. A lot of times you like a little sweep on there, a camber. But for the joiner plane, you want it dead straight. You want it dead flat because you want to create flat surfaces here. You don't want a cup kind of surface in there. So the joiner plane is always ground flat, and it's left that way, and it's ready to go. Now, I'm not sure if I got it out far enough. No, I'm going to advance the blade a little bit. Okay, I'm feeling it just touch. Okay, it's starting to happen. It's starting to happen. Okay, I'm getting a nice little shaving there. I'm going to raise it up a little more. Okay, there it is. Now, when you're using a plane like this, boy, that's a pleasure to use. I'm going to just lean down on the nose. Look how much area on the number 7. You've got that long before you hit the cutting blade. So I've got that much on there, and then I feel it hit. Now I'm going to keep pressure on the nose and just push. Now the pressure transfers to my backhand as I go. So I'm truing this surface to the trueness of the sole of this plane. So that's the beauty. The longer the sole, the truer the long edge will be in plane. Let's do it again. Man, that's fun. Let's take a look at it. Bring these down. And look at that. We bring that joint together, and it is dead nuts.
We're going there, aren't we?
Yeah. And I mean that is, I can feel it rubbing along the whole surface. So that's a sweet joint. I'm pleased with that. But that's the method you can use. All right, so what I'm going to do is set up my clamps. I like these I-beam clamps for gluing up large tabletops because you get great pressure and you get this beautiful aligning factor from the beam. These are dead straight. And so they really help you out to get a nice clamping pressure right across there. So I'm going to bring these up the way I had them. I'll set these clamps to the outside. What I usually like to do is have one on the bottom and then put one on the top and then one on the bottom again. So I'll put one on the top, but I'll put that in after. But not, I probably won't, I don't really need to use an I-beam. This is so beautifully jointed that there's hardly any noticeable spot. I'm going to use one of these cute little glue bottles. These other guys, they always get gummed up and kind of clogged. But if you have a little thing like this off the side, it doesn't cost you much. Just put a little and then keeps it fresh. Bring it out, and I'm just going to squeeze a nice controlled bead right down there. And I'll put a second one. You see, you have better control with this too. So there you go. Now, rather than smearing up my finger and getting glue finger, a common malady among woodworkers, I am going to let the boards spread the glue for me. So I'm going to just drop it down quickly and push them together and do a rub fit. And look at how that glue spreads beautifully. It comes up right through, and I know I've got it coming through the bottom the same way. No need for biscuits here unless you have a problem aligning. Biscuits help a little with strength, but they're more of an alignment tool. This orientation of grain, side grain to side grain, is the strongest way boards can be glued together. So all these glues are stronger than the bond of the wood fibers to themselves. So if you have a good true glue joint, that joint is going to be stronger than the wood around it. So here we go. Wow, that's dead flush right there too. Now I like to make sure it's seated flat on the rails, which we did, and there we go. So that's it. Beautiful. In plane. I can put one across the middle. Like I could put a big heavy one, but I prefer to just put a lighter clamp for this. And I'm going to just use one of these K-bodies. This is not really, it's getting all the alignment from the beams. As long as it's down on those rails, and I can see it, it's just true. And I know that joint is true because we did that method of joining on the joiner. Now I'm going to leave it here. After about 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, I'll come along with a putty knife while that glue is kind of gelled, and it'll just peel right off beautifully and easily. And I don't care if there's a little residue on there. That will scrape, and it'll actually get hand planed and sanded off later. So you got these 3 different types of clamps. I think it's called the F style, and then the K body, and then the I-beam style. So these have a certain pounds pressure, and then the K body is a little stronger, and then the I-beams are the strongest of these 3. You could do this glue up on the K bodies too. It's enough force. You don't need a tremendous amount of pressure. You just want to close it until it closes up. You don't need to crank it. Now I want to show you one more project, a little project I'm doing for the town of Canterbury, New Hampshire. I'm doing this top for the the little conference room in the new town office house they built a year ago. And another guy, another woodworker in town, not David Lamb, another guy who did a tremendous job on that office building, he built the base already. He's got it waiting over there. And he gave me these wide planks, wide cherry planks, like 16 inches wide or more. And they were about 8 footers, 8 feet long. And they had been stacked in a barn for probably 10 or 15 years. And they're beautiful. They're in sequence from the tree. But I got them in here, and they looked pretty flat from where we were, but I left them in here for a while, so they really acclimated. And then when I went to start cutting them, I was really disappointed because I wanted to be able to just joint them flat. I have a joiner downstairs, an old one that's 24 inches wide. So it's pretty nice. And you need a wide planer to match it, right? And I have one of those Powermatic 20-inch planers downstairs too. But I was thinking I was going to use those. But as I started to see, 2 of them had like slight twists to them, and then the other one was cupped. So much so that by the time I flattened that one side, I would have been too thin to put it through the planer. I was trying to get 7/8 of a thick top. That was my goal. And with the amount of twists, I couldn't do it. In fact, there was no way I was going to do it as wide as these planks are. So check this out. 1, 2, 3. Now you notice I had to cut them down the middle, which broke my heart a little bit. But as I join them back, it's going to be nearly invisible because of where it is. The only thing is that you're joining them along the cathedral portion, kind of, and sometimes it doesn't match up. But it's really hard to pick up because they're so beautifully uniform. It'll still look like 3 planks. Actually, it could be better than that. You may be hard to see any of the seams because these 3 planks were sawn from the same tree. So they're considered log run. They were stacked up there, not in the way they were sawn from the tree, but they are clearly from the same tree. In fact, you can see down that end, see the cathedral figure? I kept them oriented in the same direction with the heart side up. So these are all in that position right now. Now as I look at this, I want to do some better arranging. That center cathedral has kind of some pitchy spottiness to it, and I think I want to move that more to the outside. And I was thinking all the cathedrals down at one end, because that end looks so similar. To mix it up a little bit, I'm going to flip around so that we don't have them all down there at that one end. So I want to put this one over to the side, and this one looks a little nicer. This board, this could be our new middle. And see what I'm doing? When I turn that around, I end up with, it's like that come around joint. Because they were oriented and sawn from the same tree, look at that grain is coming right around. And it's fairly even. Well, I got a little reversal right in the middle. But other than that, it's pretty true. So I'm going to just go with it. I think it's going to be better. I don't think that joint's going to show up very much. And then this one, I'll come around this way. So now we have a beautiful harmonious joint there. And then over here, this plank now comes in, and it's kind of diving, the grain's kind of diving in a little bit right here. If we turn this around, this will be again like the come around joint. If we can turn this one, look at that. So this top's going to end up being 40 by 82. And I had to get a little under 7/8 to get the twists out. So that kind of stunk, even with ripping them. So I'm going to joint these first, and I still have about 2 inches extra here. So I'm going to be taking out any area where it looks like it's a little near sapwood, like this one. I think I'll take a little more out of here. And anywhere it has little issues appearing, like defects, like down here, this is where you can see it's still rough sawn here. this is where it was twisted. So I had to plane it down, but I can get rid of that, or no, I can't take any of that off. So I'm right at about 82 to there anyway, so I should be fine. But look at that joint. Look at that matchup, huh? I don't know if you look at it from the side, that's going to be a gorgeous table. And the coloration of that's going to be beautiful. So being in Canterbury, New Hampshire, home of Canterbury Shaker Village, historic Canterbury Shaker Village, Mark, the friend of mine, he built the base just like a shaker table, actually one that was made in New York way back. So it's got the legs, like turned legs. So it'll have a nice overhang, and he's got a method for attaching them. We thought about doing breadboard end, but I like breadboard ends, but they are always a little off at the ends. And if you have the planks so harmonious like this, it's kind of nice just to have an unbroken, it'll look like a singular surface. And it's going to age and get so much nice color. You can always see the reds in the cherry, and being from the same tree, should be a pretty nice piece there in the town offices.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
What is the length of those I-beams?
The clamps I used for that were 36-inch clamps. So usually that means you can fit 36-inch piece between them. And I have some 48s. They go up to 60s. And you can get 24s as well, which 24s would have been ideal for these. So, if you knew you were gluing up a lot of panels like this, or anytime you're building chests of drawers, they only need to be 24-inch because your tops and sides are never more than that. However, in this case, I'm going to need the 40-inch. I'm going to need to break out the 4-footers. And I've got 6 of them, so I should be good. And I may glue this up in stages. I think I might just glue the planks back together and then joint the middle sections, because this is a long glue up. And this is where it helps to sometimes use biscuits in the middle to help align it, to get it flush without sweating it. Or dominoes, but those are quite strong, and it's kind of overkill with the side joint, but hey, you're adding a little strength anyway. Well, thanks for hanging out. I know that was kind of fundamental and basic, but it is a core of achieving great looking tops. And the way the top looks and you configure it like this can make or break a great project. Whether your project is small or large. But thanks so much for tuning in. It's always great to have you stop by the shop to visit with myself and the camera lady, of course. And I will see you next time, right back here next Thursday night on Shop Night Live.
Great to have you all here. Have a great week.